Turn heads and bring the hype with a custom hype chain from Lotwin. Perfect for youth sports, fantasy football, or just flexing your pride. Go to Lotwin.com, use the promo code TCCPOD for 10% off your order. That's Lotwin.com, promo code TCCPOD for 10% off. Get your custom hype chain and get hype with Lotwin. What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for November 7th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Feel Good Friday edition of the weekend, a football Feel Good Friday, as we need to wait till Monday night for the next Eagles game. But more on that in a minute. First, I want to start off by saying, once again, congratulations to all of the 2025 Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame inductees. Great event last night. I'm tired, but it was well worth it. Just a quick recap of some of the things. And if you want more detail on the inductees, you can go back and check the past few weeks. I've been spotlighting them at the end of the show, or you can go to PhiladelphiaSportsHallOfFame.com. But just an overall, just great night, and it's one of my favorite nights of the year. And I guess for me, 10-year-old me, was in his glory last night. Clyde Simmons got inducted, was able to kind of chat with him a little bit, and that I just thought was really cool. He gave a great speech talking about his welcome to the NFL moment against the Giants back in '86 and how he just got absolutely manhandled, and it was something he was not used to. Came into the league only weighing 245 pounds, which even back then was still pretty big, but knew he had to work hard. Got on the field, was trying to dedicate himself in the weight room. Gave a shout out to Buddy Ryan, who Buddy Ryan always, until you did something, he said you were always known by the numbers. So I was always 96 until near the end of the season. They had their exit interviews, and Buddy said, "Clyde, I want you to start at right end for me." And he just thought that was a pretty cool moment to see that Buddy Ryan was able to see something in it. The Hilldale Daisies, the Derby Daisies, or Derby Hilldale Club, they go by many different names. They were honored for their 100th anniversary of winning the Negro League World Series. Got to speak with Judy Johnson, who is a Major League Baseball Hall of Famer, as well as a Philadelphia Sports Hall of Famer. His niece was there. It was pretty cool to kind of talk with her, and just she was thrilled to be there, that they were honoring the team again and whatnot. So very, very cool moment. Gary Williams and Paul Holmgren are probably two of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. A lot of people, they're trying to figure it out the way of the event once they check in and everything. But both of those guys came over and were just talking and were willing to tell stories. And the fact that both of them were, and Clyde too, were legitimately humbled to be included. Clyde even made the comment about this is not a football award. This is the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. So the fact that I am included with all these other great athletes who are Olympians and everything, great moment there. Jeffrey Lurie gave a good speech. Mike Rozier didn't give much of a speech, but it was pretty cool to talk to before the event. Got to talk with him and his son. Lynn Carter, the first African-American boxing judge. She was awesome. Her story was great. Talk about just going in there and being persevering and not taking no for an answer. Marched in and basically told Joe Frazier that he was going to train her. So just like I said, overall, great moment, great night. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, even though it's not my thing, shout out to the 85 Villanova team. A lot of those guys were back. I was talking a little bit before everything started with Raleigh Messamino's son. He had brought in some photos of the team from that 85 season for us to use. So, I mean, not my thing, but the Villanova bond and the Villanova love is strong. So congratulations to them and everybody who was inducted. Great time. Looking forward to the next induction class, but it's just amazing. And then Mary Ellen Clark, that was a pretty cool thing. She brought her own, she brought her bronze medals from the 92 and 96 Olympics. So to actually be able to hold an Olympic gold bronze medal was very cool. And talk about humble and just grateful. I'm not sure where she's living now, but she's originally from Radnor, so she was very, very excited to come home. And she said that multiple times. Her story was great about how she didn't want to dive off the platform because she was nervous about it. One of the coaches kind of pushed her and forced her to do it, and there she is going to the Olympics. So it's awesome to hear those stories. Like I can talk about the events and things like that on this podcast a lot. But to hear like the actual human side and the human stories is one of the things I love. So great night. Congratulations to all the inductees again. And like I said, if you want to go see more on that, go to the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame or go back and rewatch some of the podcasts. So I did that, but shout out to all of the inductees. All right, to the ice and the Flyers. Good win down in Nashville yesterday, 3-1. We have a Matvei Mishkov sighting. Finally got off the schneid, ending a 9-game no-goal drought with a goal yesterday. Travis Konecny and Noah Cates also scored. Dan Vladar looks solid in goal as the Flyers get back on the right side. They're back in action tomorrow at the X versus the Ottawa Senators. And then the Sixers have back-to-back games this weekend at home, Toronto and Detroit. Tomorrow is one of the throwback games for the 2000-2001 teams, so they'll be wearing the black jerseys. Hip-hop will be in the house. Looking forward to watching that one. And I will say, I feel like maybe it's just the way they're designing them, but I was in Dick's the other day with my son trying to pick up some things for him, and he got one of the long-sleeve tees, the black ones with the old logo on it. They look better than I remember. Just kind of throwing that out there. But tomorrow's a throwback day for the Sixers. The new Brotherly Birds breakdown is out, available wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube, so go check that out. Kyle and I break down Howie's trade deadline and then get you ready for Monday Night Football with the Packers. A.J. Brown was interviewed. And I must say, I was very happy or liked what he said. First of all, he's playing, but said he spent the bye week playing football with his son. Mentioned he was asked again about wanting to be here, and he's like, "Why wouldn't I be?" And then it was cool to see Devontae kind of chime in and put his head in during the interview. But I think AJ's back. Jalen said as much. He's glad to have him back healthy. So maybe it was just a little thing he was going through, and now here we are. We're back because we're certainly going to need him down the stretch. But overall, the Eagles are very healthy yesterday in practice. Only non-participant was Cam Jurgens dealing with the knee. Maybe if it was a push come to shove, he could play. Because it's Monday Night Football, there's still a lot of time left for them to make that decision. But with Brett Toth, I'd rather see them make sure he's fully healthy than run the risk of them getting injured again. They did open the practice window. I've been talking about this the past few weeks on the Brotherly Birds breakdown. But Willie Lampkin, for the offensive lineman they picked up from the Rams after he was cut during training camp, his practice window is open. So that should actually be providing some depth for them. I think that was the one area how he did not address in the trade deadline. But with Willie Lampkin there, being able to possibly contribute, that is a good thing. The new guys all practiced: Jair Alexander, Michael Carter, and Jalen Phillips. Jalen Phillips seemed ecstatic to be here. You could just see the excitement on his face. He said it was one thing when he got off the plane and signed here and everything, but once he got on the practice field, it was just game over. And it's amazing to see what guys that come in here from losing organizations and just losing cultures, the shock that they have. And I think it's one of the things we take for granted here. And shout out to Jeffrey Lurie for that, for creating that culture. But it's always fun to see those guys comment on it and just see the joy and the excitement in Jalen Phillips' face. Of course, BG practice, but they all seem pretty pumped. Jair Alexander, I didn't realize, was born in Philly. He was born at Jeff. So the Eagles are pretty healthy. Listen, this next 3-game stretch is going to be very telling for the Eagles. If they can come out of this 2-1, 3-0, look out, NFL. Look out. All right, we'll have more on that, like I said, on the Brotherly Birds breakdown. That is available wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. The answer to yesterday's trivia question, I asked who has the highest career points per game average against the Sixers. Lots of people thinking a lot of Michael Jordan guesses. There was a lot of LeBron, Kobe, had a few Shaquille O'Neals. But the answer is Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain averaged 35.6 points per game against the Sixers. And it was a pretty good sample size, 81 games against the Sixers, and he averaged 35.6. Remember, kids, the Philadelphia Warriors used to play the Syracuse Nationals, which some of those games count. And then, of course, when Wilt went out to L.A., he played the Sixers as well. But the next on the list, the more contemporary person, Zion Williamson, 31 points per game against the Sixers, and that's in a 5-game sample size. But Wilt Chamberlain has the highest points per game average all time versus the Sixers. The Union will find out their playoff opponent for the Eastern Conference semifinals tonight when Charlotte takes on New York City Football Club down in Charlotte. So the Union can just put up their feet and watch as they're not going to play until closer to Thanksgiving due to FIFA. No, it wasn't FIFA. It was U.S. Maybe it was FIFA. Whatever it is, there is a little bit of a 2-week window there where the MLS playoffs take a pause. But we will find out who the Union play tonight. Tomorrow, my Owls are up in West Point to take on the Army to become bowl eligible. Can they do it? They're 6.5-point underdogs, but can they beat those Cadets up in Army? I don't know. We'll have to see. They need to play a lot better than what they played last week, but I think Casey Keeler will have them done. And then, of course, the number 8 Villanova Wildcats will go down to Townsend to take on that team, and hopefully things go away. The Nova Wildcats could get up into the top 5, so we'll see what happens with that. But be sure to follow me on social media, Philly Jimbo, on all platforms, at Jimbo_Mont for the YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, comment, all that other good stuff. Continue to spread the word as we try to outsmart the algorithm. And then, of course, in a couple weeks, we will be kicking off the 3rd annual gift and food drive benefiting the Maddie and Dixon Community Cupboard over in Ambler. Very excited to work with them again for the 3rd year. I mentioned the new platform. Once I get everything set up and finalized, I will make sure that is out there. But again, looking forward to helping those in need, especially around the holidays and with the current climate with everything. So every little bit helps. So stay tuned for details for that. This Day in Philly Sports History is proud to be a part of the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network, a growing community of diehard fans turning their sports passion into something special. Whether you're looking for unique shows, want to launch your own podcast but don't have the time, or need production services, theclashingconferences.com has everything you need. Explore fan-driven content, become a member, or tap into their media services to level up your brand. That's clashingconferences.com, where fans' voices get heard. All right, November 7th. First, we're going to go back to 1986. And on this day in 1986, the 76ers retired Bobby Jones as number 4. Bobby Jones, you might remember, was the 6th man on that 1983 NBA championship team. Actually won the NBA 6th Man of the Year award that year. Played for the Sixers from 1978 through 1986. 3-time All-Star, 8-time All-NBA defensive team. 7 of those were on the first team, and just one of the all-time greats in not only the NBA, but Sixers history. obviously to get his number retired. But on this day, back in 1986, Bobby Jones, his number 24, was hung from the rafters at the Spectrum, was moved over to the Coors State Center, and now hangs in the rafters at the X. On this day in 2004, the Eagles traveled to Pittsburgh and suffered the first loss of their season, 27-3. The offense just struggled to get going right from the start. And for the first time, everything was going well. First time, we started to see a little bit of cracks in the relationship between Donovan and Terrell Owens. We've been talking a lot about that this week. But a year earlier, before all this stuff went down, this is kind of where we started seeing they were yelling on the sidelines. Donovan was trying to walk away from him. Terrell Owens kept following him. They said after the fact it was Terrell trying to pump him up. I don't know. We saw how it unraveled after that. But as much as the offense struggled, the defense gave up 420 yards to the Steelers that day. Just not an overall good day. And I'll never forget, I had a chance. A buddy of mine called me up at I think it was late Saturday night. Or might even have been early Sunday morning. Maybe it was a 4 o'clock game. But either way, to ask me to go out to that game. And it would have involved me basically driving overnight to Pittsburgh. I respectfully declined. Thank God I did. I'd have been miserable sitting with all the Pittsburgh people out there in a game like that. So sometimes the best decision is the one you don't make. I don't even know if that makes any sense. Whatever. I'm tired from the Hall of Fame ceremony. Fast forward 3 years later, 2007. And on this day, the Phillies made a trade that would help them greatly less than a year later, as they would win the World Series, thanks in large part to both of these guys. They would trade Michael Bourne, Jeff Gary, and Mike Costanzo to the Astros for one Brad Lidge and Eric Bruntlett, both, like I said, who were big parts of that 2008 World Series team. Lidge obviously was perfect in saves throughout the regular season and postseason. And much to my brother's chagrin, Eric Bruntlett was pretty much Mr. Utility. He did a lot of things that year for the Phils. Of course, as a pinch runner, ran in and scored the winning run when Pedro Feliz knocked him in Game 5. Played a big part in Game 3 when Chooch hit I think he scored the winning run in that game too, if I'm remembering correctly. But both of these guys were huge parts of that World Series winning team, and both were acquired on this day in 2007. Little did we know, because Brad Lidge, if you remember, came in, and the Astros were done with him because of the way he played in the postseason a couple years prior to that. So he was kind of struggling. So it was definitely a risky move by Pat Gillick, but one that ultimately paid off. 2 years later from there, we mentioned Villanova football ranked number 8. Well, let's go back to 2009, and the number 4 ranked Wildcats traveled down to Richmond to take on the number 1 ranked FCS team, the Richmond Spiders. And they pulled off the upset when Brandon Harvey caught a 29-yard touchdown pass with just under a minute to go to give the Wildcats a 21-20 lead. They would ride that momentum the rest of the season through the playoffs, winning the national championship in 2009. And then 2017, I had to mention this, but a sad day in Philly sports. Roy Halladay passed away when the plane he was piloting crashed into the Gulf of Mexico, ending his life way too soon. Would have been, never really got to enjoy retirement life all that long, but a sad day in Philly sports history on this day in 2017.
It's time for Fridays with AI, where we ask AI to rewrite Philly sports history. Every Friday only on This Day in Philly Sports History.
That's right. It is Friday. That means it's time for Fridays with AI. Brought to you, as always, by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. Lots of great new Sixer shirts, I have to say. I need to get my hands on, and I'm hesitant to do this color because of just the way I am when I eat, drink, whatever. But the white Play the Song shirt looks amazing. The hoodie. I just don't know about getting a white hoodie, but go check it out. The Play the Song hoodies look phenomenal, and use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. All right, so yesterday was the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony for 2025. So in honor of that, I asked AI, within the next 10 to 20 years, who gets in and who might be on the bubble. And AI stuck mostly to the professional ranks because with a lot of the like Olympic sports and things like that, you just never know until they happen, and they happen every 4 years. So most of these are pros. So let's start with the Phillies. Who does AI think gets in? AI first and foremost on the list said Bryce Harper is a lock. Zach Wheeler is a strong possibility, but a lot's going to be dependent upon how he comes back from the injury this year. Aaron Nola is also likely, but hopefully he will cement his spot, according to AI, with a bounce-back season this year. Cole Hamels is a lock to be in. He just needs to wait out the waiting period, the 5 years. I think the Hall of Fame does it just like the regular Hall of Fame. And then JT was an interesting one, and this was the longest one for the Phillies that AI wrote. The only way JT gets in is if he re-signs and they win a World Series with him as the starting catcher. Same way with Rob Thompson. Rob Thompson is one of those guys that sort of, because of his playoff failures, likely won't get in. But if they win a World Series, they said he is a lock. Moving over to football. And Jalen Hurts, lock. Jason Kelsey, lock. Fletcher Cox, lock. Lane Johnson, Brandon Graham, both locks as well. Nick Sirianni, if he continues on this trajectory, is a lock. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, both have shots depending on how the rest of their careers play out. And then, of course, Jake Elliott is a long shot. AI did say he might get in, but he might be a little bit older when he gets in. But again, a lot is going to be dependent upon the rest of his career as well. And then, of course, as we always do these things, the Sixers, not a lot. Joel Embiid is a lock, AI said. You can't take what he's done and where he ranks in the all-time Sixers history away from him. So he's a lock. And then Tyrese Maxey, barring a disaster, and he continues on his current trajectory, is on that path. No one else really sticks out. They didn't get into VJ Edgecombe or Jarrett McCain because they're too young. There's not really anybody from the 2000-2001 team that'll get in. Brett Brown, obviously not. Of course, Doc Rivers, no chance. So that's it for the Sixers. Flyers, Claude Giroux is a lock. Travis Konechny is a maybe. A lot of that is due to him being a fan favorite, but he might get in. And then Danny Briere was an interesting one. He could get in as a general manager and a player. So a lot is going to be dependent upon how these next few years play out for the Flyers. There were a few Union players on the list. Andre Blake, Sebastian Letou, and Daniel Gazdag will all get in eventually. And it's one of those things. There's not any Union players right now in the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, mostly because the Union started essentially around the same time as the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. So now that the Union have been around 20 plus years, the Hall of Fame's been around, I think AI agreed that you're going to see a lot of Union players, or some Union players, I shouldn't say a lot, some Union players start getting in. 2016 and 2018 Villanova Wildcat teams, the national champions, will get in. And then Citizens Bank Park will get in eventually as a venue, joining the Palestra. And I think the Blue Horizon is the other venue that is inducted into the Hall of Fame. But who did AI miss? I went through it. I couldn't really think of anybody, specifically the Sixers. I'm like, there has to be somebody else on the Sixers that gets in. No. So let me know. 267-495-8531. That gets you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. Get that, anything else Philly sports related, off of your chest. And then for the next few days, until we get into our What We're Thankful For, we're going to go, and we did this a little bit last year around the same time, and it was positively received. So we're going to do it a little different. I had random list generator come up with 6 random years in the past 25 years. We've been doing a lot this year with the first 25 years of the century. And I had just the internet pick 6 random years. And we're going to just look at the sports headlines from those years. Today we looked at the daily news. Like I said, just a little bit of fun until we get to what we're thankful for. Today's year was 2007. So we went to the daily news, and the headlines in the sports world were Jimmy Rollins and Aaron Rowan both win their first ever Gold Glove Awards for the Phillies. Curt Schilling was a big topic of conversation, maybe possibly coming back to join the 2008 Phillies staff. He decided to stay in Boston. So Pat Gillick turned his eyes to Japanese star Hiroki Kuroda. As we know, he ended up going to the Dodgers. The Dodgers always tend to get the Japanese players through the international transfer. General managers meetings were happening for Major League Baseball, and they were discussing using instant replay for home runs due to a few calls that had happened that year. We know that ended up screwing the Phillies in the 2009 World Series. Still mad about that. It's about the 4th time in the past 2 weeks I brought that up. Eric Lindros was expected to announce his retirement from the NHL any day now. There was an article about Al Golden and his relationship with Joe Paterno, and Joe Paterno flat out told him, don't take the Temple job. Well, thank God he didn't listen to Joe Paterno, and he kind of turned that program around. Sixers were 1-2 in last place. Flyers were 8-5 tied for first. Eagles were 3-5 tied for last place. There was a big thing in the daily news, their midpoint grades, and they were not good for the Eagles. But that's what was happening in the headlines on this day in 2007 from the Philadelphia Daily News. We'll do this next week, and then we'll get into what we're thankful for as we get into the Thanksgiving season. But let me know your thoughts on AI. Who deserves to be in the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame? Think about some of those less popular sports, the Olympic sports, as I like to call them. And maybe there's somebody that should be in that you think. And since I'm on the committee, I can actually bring them up and we can discuss them. So kind of a twofold thing there. But thank you for AI for stopping by. Brought to you by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. On this day in 2017, Roy Halladay passed away. In 2009, number 4 Villanova went down to Richmond to beat the number 1 team in the country, rode that momentum to a national championship. In 2007, Phillies make one move for 2 players that paid dividends a year later, trading for Brad Lidge and Eric Bruntlett. Both were integral parts of that 2008 World Series team. Eagles suffered their first loss of the season on this day out in Pittsburgh. We started to see a little... The honeymoon period ended on this day for the Terrell Owens and Donovan McNabb, and thank God I didn't go out to that game. And then in 1986, Bobby Jones's number 24 was hung to the rafters of the Spectrum. One of the best to ever do it for the Sixers and a key part of that 83 championship team. Big weekend for Philly sports. No Eagles, though. So we got Nova and Temple football. Got a couple Sixers games. We got a Flyers game. The Union will find out who they play in the playoffs. And no football on Sunday. So get out, rake your leaves. That's what I plan on doing. They're collecting them on Monday, so I got to get them all out to the curb so the vacuum can just suck them up. But once again, congratulations to the 2025 Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction class. Everybody, well-deserved. It was a great, great time. A lot of fun. Great hanging out with those people. And like I said, being involved with them, I usually don't get too starstruck, but I was fanboying a little bit with Clyde Simmons. And then, of course, shout out to my wife who made a beeline at the end of the ceremony because I had mentioned I would like to go over and meet Seth Joyner. Made a beeline, went over, got to shake his hand, told him it was an honor, got my picture with him, and 10-year-old Jim was just in his glory. Only time. I usually don't do that, but that one I kind of threw caution to the wind, and I was a 10-year-old out of Westchester at training camp again, meeting my heroes. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for November 7th, 2025. My name's Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a feel-good Friday. Have fun raking leaves this weekend. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.